I don't know if I can name somebody in the NFL that's more of a, I don't know, the CEO type, the corporate spokesperson for the Seattle Seahawks than is Russ. And it was a little out of character for me. It caught me a little bit off guard. Did it you?
I don't think it like caught me off guard. I think we have a lot of conversations, kind of. So we talk about everything. So him kind of doing that wasn't necessarily off guard. It was just the timing was just weird, and I kind of heard it through the media. So whenever you hear something through the media, unfortunately, like I don't really take it for nothing until I have a conversation with him. And once I had a conversation with him, I think it was blown out of proportion. I think it was, taken a different way than he may have tried to do it. So even when I heard it, it wasn't really anything that like I was worried about because I got his, a number. I just called him and asked him, and just like everybody else. And so I didn't think too much of it.
Well, welcome into the Cris Collinsworth podcast. Obviously, last week, my co-host from a season ago, Richard Sherman, had a very challenging week. Before we get on with the program today, I just wanted to say a couple of words about Richard. And I know that he's got challenges in front of him, but everybody here in PFF appreciates what he's meant to us over the years. He's been a big part of not just my podcast, but other people's shows and podcasts. And so we understand the challenges that he's laid out. He understands them as well. He's been very open, very honest with what he has to address moving forward in his life. And from all of us here, we're cheering for Richard and his family to get back on track and to do so very quickly. So I'll just sort of leave it at that. I do want to say that I did not ask Bobby Wagner about Richard. I didn't think it was fair to either one of them. Just so happened that we had Bobby on the program today and did talk to him a little bit off the air. And obviously he's great friends with Richard and wishes him the very best as well. One quick note before we get off and begin to talk to the great all-pro linebacker, absolute lock to be in the Hall of Fame, Bobby Wagner. Do want to remind you it's already fantasy football season, and to get primed to dominate your league, we're offering 40% off any PFF subscription to all first-time subscribers with promo code SAVE40, SAVE 40, and you'll get total access to PFF's fantasy draft guide, complete with our player rankings and projections, our college football preview magazine, which is just unbelievable, the first edition of the 2022 NFL draft guide, and all of PFF's locked article content. When you go to our site, you will get that as well. Again, that's promo code SAVE40 for 40% off any PFF subscription. Get access to all of PFF's fantasy tools for just $5.99. Now off we go with the guy that we will soon see in the Hall of Fame, Seattle Seahawks linebacker Bobby Wagner. All right, well, let's welcome in the great Bobby Wagner into our show, Seattle Seahawks linebacker extraordinaire. And Bobby, for a long time, it was just you and Luke Kuechly, and that was sort of the end of the conversation, man. That was I didn't have to go much farther down the depth chart than that. I'm sure you probably ended up following his career a little bit because you guys were just it was almost like you were the same person. Anytime somebody said one name, the other name came out right after it.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely kept up with each other. I think, us coming in the same class, around the same time. I think he went to a Super Bowl like right after I went to the Super Bowl. So, and he was doing it at a high level. So you always want to watch somebody performing at a high level.
One of my favorite parts of my job is I get a chance to interview you guys at all levels of your career. So way back, I want to say it was maybe 2014, about your third year in the league, something like that. You were starting to emerge as a star there. And one of the stories that you told us was about where we asked, why Utah State? You know, you were a second round pick, you know, you had all this success, first team all pro, I think 5 of the 6 years you were in the league, leading the league in tackles. I mean, you go on and on with your numbers. And the question was, no insult to Utah State. I'll get all kinds of letters, I'm sure. But why Utah State? And you had one word answer for us, and it was mom.
Yep.
How did that happen?
Yeah. So Utah State was my only offer, and it was only my only trip that I took. And I was really set on staying in California. I didn't want to leave California. And then when I got out there and I took my trip down there, you know, I saw snow for the first time, and it was very cold, very wet. And I was just like, man, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want, like, it was nothing about Utah State. It was just I didn't want to deal with the snow. And, you know, I remember going through the whole thing. We watched a basketball game. We get into the room with the head coach. And, you know, he basically offers me there on the spot. He's like, he walks out the room, you know, like says, you know, I'll give you guys some time to think about it. And so he walks out of the room, and, you know, I kind of just looked at my mom. I was like, man, I don't know if I could do this. No, I don't think I could do this. And, you know, she was like, you'll be going to Utah State. And I was like, nah, you know, I think there's other ways. Maybe California school will come. Like, you know, I'm good. And she was just like, basically, you know, if you don't accept this offer, you're not coming back home. And
wow.
I was like, well, I mean, all right, I'll do it. But, you know, I was in a tough position. I wanted to go back home too. So, but yeah, it ended up working out. Yeah, it ended up working out. She must have knew what she was talking about.
She did. Now, did Jim Harbaugh have a little something to do with it as well? Something like, if I remember the story right, it was something about you guys had sort of talked to Harbaugh, and then they went back to the Utah State coach and said, listen, if you don't sign him pretty soon, then they're going to sign with Harbaugh. Something. I just remember there was something about Harbaugh in the story.
Yeah, so my head coach from high school, Coach Rice, I remember going to him and saying, like, hey, coach, like, I want to stay in California. And I remember how mad he got that day. And this was a long time ago. And, you know, after we won a Super Bowl, I went to speak to the school that he was at. And he was talking to me about the Stanford story. Now, for me, the Stanford story was, you know, I had my first period, I didn't have to go to it because it was just like a TA class. And so, you know, so I normally like to get a little bit more sleep. And so when I woke up to like so many missed calls. And apparently Stanford had came to the school and wanted to see me, but I wasn't at the school. So I got dressed as fast as I could, and I ran, you know, and I got to the school, but by the time I got there, they were gone. And, you know, so to me, I'm thinking I missed out on an opportunity to kind of talk to them. And so that's what I thought the Stanford story was. So after the Super Bowl, when I was talking to the kids, I was talking to him, and I told him the Stanford story, and he was like, no, that's not what I was talking about. Like, then he basically tells me that he was at this coaching event, and he saw Jim Harbaugh, I think, at a bar or, like, you know, somewhere sitting by himself. So he walks up to him, you know, kind of says, hey, you know, there's a linebacker, you know, I think you should take a look at him. He's really good. And, you know, Harbaugh was like, you know, we're kind of stacked at linebacker, but if something happens, you know, we'll definitely take a look at him and we'll give him a chance. And so I think he went from that conversation to Utah State and said that Stanford was getting ready to offer me and that they need to act quick or they were going to miss out. And so then Utah State invited me out on a visit and offered me there. So that was his Stanford story, where basically, you know, he kind of, I wouldn't say tricked. I would say, you know, he gave Utah State a very good player.
Yeah, it was. It's funny. My son Austin had just the opposite impact. Harbaugh was kind of stringing him along, how they always look over to see where the next prettiest girl is. They're always looking
Right.
for the one behind you, and they don't make their move until they have to. And then my son went to Notre Dame and got offered at Notre Dame, and while we're on campus, lo and behold, the academic requirements at Stanford had finally cleared, and Austin had a scholarship while he was there accepting a scholarship at Notre Dame. So
Oh,
sometimes they come
wow.
to the dance a little late. Sometimes they get there a little early. That
Yeah.
whole recruiting stuff you could write books about that.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. It's interesting. I actually had a school. I won't say the school, but I actually had one of the coaches from that school look me straight in my face and say I wasn't big enough, wasn't strong enough, and that I would not make it. And every year we played them, I made sure to have a very good game.
That's called an oops.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a big oops. We have all kinds of interesting things to talk about with you, and you're one of our go-to guys at NBC. You're a good storyteller, and you always have a good feel for what's happening. It's really between you and Russ. We can pretty much just talk to you two guys and then head out the door after that, because Al Michaels is ready to go to dinner at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon every time anyway.
Oh
So
man, 4 o'clock. That's early.
but I'm going to start with you. I mean, the news of the day today, and we're recording this, whatever day this is, Wednesday, on Fred Warner and his 5-year, $95 million contract, $40 million guaranteed. And he is now the highest paid inside linebacker. And I just wondered your reaction when you saw that. I mean, you have been first team All Pro almost every year that you've been in the league. Is your reaction, oh my gosh, oh, that's awesome? What the heck? What was your first reaction when you heard the news?
It was funny. I was actually just getting out of yoga, and I got out of yoga, and I was getting like alerts and stuff on my phone, and I saw he got paid. I'm like, man, I didn't even see the number yet, but I was like, I was very, very happy for him because he's put in a lot of work, and he's grown a lot since his rookie year, and you just root for guys like that. And so I was very, very happy for him, and very happy for the position too. I think the way that the position is looked at nowadays is a lot different than it was when we were first getting into the league. And I think there's a lot more respect towards the position. And I think people are starting to realize that the Mike linebacker is really the quarterback of the defense. And so I think the pay increase and the guys getting compensated for the way they excel at the position is something that is everybody can be happy for, but definitely for Fred, I'm happy for him. And I'm pretty sure, Darius is not too far. And then, Devin White and it just hopefully just keeps going up.
Yeah, it's really not only the captain of the team, but most offenses now are trying to attack your position. I mean, and really the coverage ability that you've shown over the years has really been a huge part of what's separated you and the Luke Kuechlys of the world and the Fred Warners of the world. They play all that quarters coverage there. And so really those interior three off the ball players, I mean, it's almost man coverage sometimes inside the way that they have to play it. But for you guys, there's so many teams trying to attempt the deep over routes, right, to get from the man side, the zone side over to the man side. And so that linebacker position, sometimes you have to run and get depth and try and get underneath guys that are 20, 30 yards down the field.
Yeah, for sure. But most offenses, when you look at it, it's whenever you see a skilled player that close to the line of scrimmage, you can pretty much tell it's coming. So you can almost get ready. Whenever you see a guy like Tyler Lockett close to Dwayne Brown, you know what I mean? You kind of can tell something's about to happen. But that's, it's kind of universal. I think, everybody looks at the linebackers and, a receiver or maybe a fast tight end and think they see a matchup. And, you just have to be ready for it, be patient and take care of it. But, we are very fast, just like everybody else, and very smart, just like everybody else. So, we most of us pretty much know when it's coming.
Talk about the linebacker position in the NFL just a bit. You guys play so much of that Seattle cover three, and you're famous for it. And Pete Carroll's, one of the inventors of it. It clearly was one of the great runs of defense that we've ever seen in the history of the National Football League. But how has your inside linebacker position changed since you came in the league in 2012?
I think, as you gotten more, gotten older, I think they kind of ask you to do more. Even like with us, we were just, cover three majority of the time. But again, as you get older and as you get a good grasp of the defense, you have to understand how everything works around you. Some positions may be able to get away with just knowing their job, but I think the middle linebackers position specifically, it's important to know where everyone's at all times, because you're all working on a string, and you need to be able to help guys around you, help guys in front of you, help guys behind you, and you're literally in the middle of the defense, and you need to know what's going on all around you. And if you don't, there's no way that you can excel at this position, because it's too much going on, and there's so many different ways that they try to attack your position, and you need to know where your help's at. You need to know, how you can bait people into making plays. And so I think that's the intellect, in my opinion, has grown over the majority of the linebacker group. I feel like, maybe it was a couple guys that, were doing that, but I think it's kind of like it's a must-have now, nowadays. And, I think that's kind of the biggest thing, is just being able to do everything. You have to be able to guard running backs. You have to be able to guard tight ends. You have to be able to guard sometimes receivers. You got to be able to take on pullers, take on fullbacks, tackle guys that are, 5'7", tackle guys that are 6'4", and, you're just kind of in the middle of it and have to be able to do it all.
How much of the game, we talk about this sometimes during broadcast, and especially when you're on the field as the defensive quarterback, if you will, and go back to your Super Bowl against Peyton Manning, and you begin to watch that matchup. As a matter of fact, the first snap of the game, Peyton Manning is there, and he's going to call an audible, and he starts walking up towards the line of scrimmage. They snap the ball over his head, 2 points of safety right off the bat. How much reacting as the quarterback of the defense do you have to do when Peyton started screaming Omaha, 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 and all the different things that he would do? Will you try to match calls with those quarterbacks?
It depends on a quarterback, and it depends on the film study, because sometimes those quarterbacks come up and they don't necessarily check anything. It's not really, changing a play or anything like that. Sometimes they're just identifying where the safety's coming down, because some teams like to run away from the safeties. Some teams like to run to the safety. So really, when they're making some of these checks, it's not necessarily they're changing the play. It's more so, they're identifying where the safety's coming down and maybe want to run away from the safety. Now, you have some quarterbacks that'll change the play, or some quarterbacks, when they see, when they see we're in man, they might check to empty. So I think everything varies. So sometimes you want to check. Sometimes they check right into, what you want. Sometimes they see a blitz and they try to run the ball away from the blitz. And sometimes you can change the blitz if you have enough time. And so that's kind of the game. It's can you align the players and kind of get them where the ball, or where you think the ball is going, kind of each play. But it's not every player, not every quarterback is doing that. It's only a handful of quarterbacks that are actually changing the plays or reading the coverages and adjusting and doing those things. Some of the majority of quarterbacks just reading, kind of what they watched on film and just running away from either a safety or something like that. But, for the select few that actually, change the plays, you have to be ready for it.
Yeah, they might be running away from your guy's safety now. Jamal Adams is coming from all angles. If he's coming down, usually he's crossing the line of scrimmage and trying to make a play. I think 9 sacks last year, something like that. Some record number of sacks out of the safety position. But it's a different defense now with him, right? I mean, it's a little if you're going to rush him that many times, then there's going to be compensation other places, and you got to fix it. How different was the defense when he came over?
I wouldn't necessarily say the defense was different. I just think there were more calls. Like maybe we blitzed them a little bit more, so we were more maybe in man coverages or things that we we had like replacement zones, things of that nature. So I think it wasn't necessarily a huge difference. I think, when you have a guy who's able to blitz like that, you want to really maximize his talent. And he showed that he can get there pretty much any time because 9 sacks, I'm pretty sure he probably could have had 4 or 5 more if he wanted to. So, you really got to utilize your talent around you. And, that was one of the ways. And so sometimes, you even fake it, act like he's, put him in a line of scrimmage, act like he's coming, and then don't send him. And so it allows your defense to get creative.
All right, we're going to play a little trivia game now with your own career. You ready for this?
Oh, my own career?
Your own career, yeah. Okay. How many times in your career have you played fewer than 925 snaps?
Probably once.
0. 934 is the fewest you've ever had. I mean, over a 9-year career, that's an amazing number. That's a remarkable number for somebody to stay alive. Do you have any explanation for that? Other than
I just take care of my body. I spend a lot of time taking care of my body. I just left yoga today. Like I'm constantly doing something to make sure my body is in tip-top shape and can move in different directions. So, it's a lifestyle to me. So, and I never really take days off. I think that contributes to it for sure.
I hate yoga. It kills me. I can't even touch my toes. I can barely touch my shins. I hate yoga.
I mean, you just got to go to the right class. I'm pretty sure you get a little, high yoga class. It'll be nice.
No, I did yoga on the beach with my wife.
You get a good, get a couple good view up in there. You're good.
It's awful. It's an awful sport. I hate it. As a pass rusher, last year you rushed the passer a lot. Do you know how many times you rushed the passer last year? Do you have any idea where it ranked in your career?
Probably either the most or third.
Most. 110 pass rushes a season ago. And, it's sort of interesting because you guys, I never really thought of you as a blitz team back in sort of the glory days of what you guys were doing, right? It was sort of the 4-man rush and, occasionally somebody would bring some pressure, but that traditional defense. But I think that a little bit of struggles and getting pressure, a little bit having Jamal on the team maybe. But I also think a little bit of it, they kind of discovered you as a pass rusher. I mean, they began to understand that you got some little moves in there, when you're coming up the gut against the quarterback. It's almost like being the opposite of a running back, isn't it? Like you and the running back's trying to find a hole, you're trying to find a hole. When you're blitzing, you're trying to find the gap. Mm-hmm. Did you like it? Do you want to do more of it? Give me the pass rush year that was last season.
Yeah, I like it. I definitely enjoy it. Since I've gotten in the league, I always wanted to blitz more. Obviously, the beginning of the year beginning of my career, we had such an amazing pass rusher that we were able to kind of just let them kind of go and do their thing. Kind of recently we've had our struggles, and so provided me a little bit more of an opportunity to blitz. So I've always loved to blitz. I definitely want to do it more. I just need to be more productive and more efficient. So, if that number stays the same this year, I would love for the sack number to be a little higher than it was last year.
All right, now let's go on to coverage. Your first 2 years, you allowed 6 touchdown passes in 2 years. You want to take a guess how many you've allowed since then in the 7 years since?
Under 6.
6. It's exactly right. Yeah, it's exactly right. But the career is so weird. You've had 4 years where you've allowed 3 in a year. So the first 2 years and then 2 years after that, 17 and 19. Mm-hmm. And the other years, 0. You didn't allow a touchdown pass in 5 of your 9 years. That's a bizarre stat line. 4 times 3 touchdowns and 5 times 0.
Yeah, I think that's just, the younger self probably didn't realize that, especially down in the red zone, they're looking at the middle linebacker. So, a lot of that was growing pains. But I think, as you got older, you understand that sometimes definitely in that red zone, they're looking at the middle linebacker and trying to isolate him. Like you said, sometimes even though it's cover 2, it's really man down there. So, I think that a lot of that is just knowledge of the game and just trusting myself.
You told us a story one time about your defensive coordinator, and you said that he made a living off of yelling at you, that you even got chewed out one time because you didn't have your shoes tied in the meeting. Give me a little bit of how that relationship has evolved over the years.
Man, to be honest, it's probably still somewhat the same. He's still, it's funny. He actually probably just texted me today. He'll text me and random times. It could be 1 a.m, 6 a.m, noon. And he'll just text me randomly and be like, "You don't want it anymore. You're complacent. You're done. You're done. It's all good. We'll have to find somebody else. You don't want to play anymore." And he'll just randomly, he'll text me at dinner time like, "You're really not that hungry. You're not that hungry. You're not as hungry as you used to be." And so it's just, when you have a relationship with somebody like that, and you know what they really want from you, and what they see in you, he's always able to push me in many type of ways, and especially funny ways like that where he texts me random. But I know it's his way of kind of saying to me that he's excited and he's ready to come back and ready for us to really take this defense to another level. Because I feel like, early in the season, we had our struggles, but, towards the end, we were able to kind of get going. And so, I'm wanting and we're going to pick up where we left off.
Ken Norton Jr. is something else. He played that position and he played it like a wild man too. So I know it means something to him in particular.
I finally got an audio of him talking, and it's pretty much the same now than it was like.
There's no difference between player and coach?
No, not at all. Same person.
Yeah, that's him. That's him. This has been a little bit of a weird offseason from a lot of different positions, but you take 2 of the biggest stars in the game. What's going on with Aaron Rodgers at this point now with the holdout, and who knows how that's going to end. The same thing was going on with Russell Wilson, and he was unsettled, right? I mean, he clearly thought that he deserved to have a little bit better protectors up in front of him. And I don't know if I can name somebody in the NFL that's more of a, I don't know, the CEO type, the corporate spokesperson for the Seattle Seahawks than is Russ. And it was a little out of character for me. It caught me a little bit off guard. Did it you?
I don't think it caught me off guard. I think we have a lot of conversations, kind of, so we talk about everything. So, him kind of doing that wasn't necessarily off guard. It was just, the timing was just weird. And, I kind of heard it through the media. So whenever you hear something through the media, unfortunately, I don't really take it for nothing until I have a conversation with him. And, once I had a conversation with him, I think it was blown out of proportion. I think it was, taken a different way than he may have tried to do it. So even when I heard it, it wasn't really anything that I was worried about, because I got his, a number. I just called him and asked him, and just like everybody else. And so I didn't think too much of it. Obviously, I don't play the quarterback position, so I don't know how it feels to get hit like that. I do the hitting. So, I definitely feel like it was taken a different way than he might have meant it. But like I said before, I think it's over now, and we've all moved on.
It's unbelievable what you guys are subject to through social media, through the world is so different, right? When I played, whatever the newspaper writers wrote about you was kind of what it was. And they would come and ask you for quotes, and then they may or may not get it right in the newspaper, and whatever their opinion of it that was became just fact. It was just fact. Now, I mean, if you went out the night before a game and we're in a bar drinking it up, there'd be 5,000 pictures of you posted on social media. It would shoot around the world in 30 seconds, and it would be major front story headline news on every kind of ESPN, whatever you want to say, throughout the country. How weird is it? And do you have any comprehension of how different it is today with all those outlets really making you guys into stars, but also in many ways making your life difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it was, back then, but, obviously when you talk to guys that played back then or, played before, they had all this cell phone, social media type stuff, like, they'll tell you about the differences on what you were able to do and things of that nature. But yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, I think it's definitely makes you more conscious, makes you more aware of everything that you're doing, because, you don't know who's going to take a picture of you. You don't know, even like you said, like someone can write something on social media, and if enough people respond to it, like it's almost like that comment is now news, or it's like newsworthy. And so, it definitely makes you, more conscious, definitely makes you have to be more mentally focused, and it challenges you mentally, but, it's consistent. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. There's a lot of times writers back in the day wrote stuff about you or wrote stuff about guys, and it wasn't true. You just moved on. Like, it's the same thing. It's just more of it. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody, it's a lot easier to access some of us now than it was back then. So if you have a social media page or something like that, it's easy for somebody to just, hit you up or contact you, and it might get in front of your face. But, at the end of the day, you just focus on, the opinion of the opinion that matters the most is the people that are around you, and, yourself, whatever opinion you have of yourself and how you move, that's really all that matters. Everybody else is just, it's non-existent. It doesn't matter. And so that's how I treat it. I treat it like, if I don't know you, then I don't care about your opinion. And so, it really doesn't matter to me. And a lot of it is just motivation to keep going, to prove myself right.
Yeah, I used to worry about television critics, but now everybody's a television critic. So what difference does it make? It's like, no matter what, you're going to read it every different way in the world.
It's almost like critics don't even have a job anymore, because like no one waits to see like what, if you watch a movie or if a movie comes out, nobody waits and sees what the critics say about the movie. They just go look at Twitter and see what the people are saying. And so, it's like you said, it's good. It got goods and it got some bads, but it's interesting, and it makes life a little more interesting.
It sure does. I want to throw a few names at you here and get your response. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Carroll.
Great leader, great person. One of the most positive people I've ever met.
And one of the most different kind of styles. I mean, he is, when you watch him on the practice field with you guys, I literally feel like that he's like still one of those 8-year-olds that got loose on a professional football field and gets to hang out with all you guys. He's running around, jumping up and down. He's playing catch. He's shooting hoops outside. How can you explain for people who have never been around Pete and the enthusiasm and all that goes with it, what sets him apart? What makes him different?
I think the thing that sets him apart is the consistency of it. Like sometimes even if you came out and you watched him at a practice, or you watched him, kind of with us, watch him running around, jumping around, you think, okay, he's going to do that one day, and then the next day he's going to chill. But it's really every single day. He's like that every single day. He's the same way every single day. And I think that's why a lot of people respect it, because he is who he is. He loves who he is. And, he brings that out of of himself. And I think the thing too is that's what he wants to get from his players or anybody's around. He wants to have you be the best version of yourself, whatever that looks like. And he pushes for that. And I think that makes everybody around him better.
Jaron Reed, the three technique up there for a long time for you guys, now no longer with this defense. There's been such a huge turnover now on the defensive side, right? Carlos Dunlop comes out there a season ago, makes a difference. But Jaron inside and what that might mean for this defense.
Yeah, I mean, he was a huge part of our defense, and it was very unfortunate that we weren't able to figure something out and he left. But, I think he's an amazing player, a great person, someone that the Chiefs are going to love having on their team, just a high energy guy. And, like you said, we'll have to figure out a way to replace him, which is not going to be easy. But I wish him nothing but the best.
Earl Thomas before the Super Bowl that we called against the Patriots came in the room and he was as mad with me as I've ever seen anybody get mad at me over something that I really didn't even have any idea what he was talking about, but he was fired up. And he was as raw emotionally as any human being I think I've ever seen on the football field. Give me a description of what he was and what he was like as a teammate.
Man, he was somebody that, when you watch guys like Kobe Bryant be so locked in on perfecting their craft and just wanting to be great, he would be another guy that you would mention. The way that he practiced, the way that he came out and performed in games, how intense he was, even in walkthroughs. He wouldn't even let guys catch the balls and walk through. He was just that intent and that focused. And so that's how he always was when he was playing with us. He was just very, very locked in, very focused, very smart. I remember he made a tackle for loss from the deep third, one time just because he saw a play and he took a chance and he knew where the ball was going. And so, it was fun to play with him while we had him.
KJ Wright, here's your running mate forever. Doesn't even have a job right now, I don't think, right? He's still not signed with anybody yet. I mean, that was the partnership. That was, I don't know who was Batman and who was Robin, but you two guys together, that was it.
Yeah. Man, just, I could talk all day about KJ. Just an amazing, amazing person, brother to me, somebody that came in, when I first got into the league, he took me right on his wings and we grew together. And so, like you said, for him to kind of be in this position where he doesn't have a team is crazy to me, especially if you look at the last few years. Each year he's gotten better. Each year he's had a career year statistically. Even last year, they had to they moved him to a spot that maybe he didn't want to play, but he still excelled at that position better than anybody that's played that position. So, I think, again, I'm still hopeful that we will make the right decision. I'm still hopeful that he returns and we're still able to continue this amazing run that we've had. If not, I think any team that wants an amazing player, amazing leader on the team, he's the guy. But, I'm hoping, our team makes the right decision.
And finally, Jordan Brooks, the guy who, in theory, is going to be replacing him. And where is he now in his second year? Obviously, a great athlete, can do a lot of different things. Is he ready to take over?
I think he's getting there. I think he got a lot of exposure last year. I think he grew a lot from that first game to that final game that we played. And when you really think about it, he didn't really have an offseason. He kind of got thrown to a fire without really having. And even this year, things were not as normal as well. But I think once we get in training camp, and once we get the pass back on, and once we're able to kind of get around one another and grow and talk about the game and talk about things. I definitely feel like he has a lot of potential to be whatever he wants to be in this league.
I was going back. I watched your guys' tape from the Super Bowl against Denver, where you go in there and you blow them out. Really had a chance to shut them out in that game. It was I think it was the last play of the third quarter before they even scored a point, 36-0, something like that. Of course, one of my favorite moments was the coin toss where Terry McCauley, who's now our colleague at NBC, hands the coin to Joe Namath, who flips it before anybody called heads or tails. So Terry had to catch the coin flip, hand it back to Joe, say, hold on a minute here, dude. Hold on before you snap it. But that was the last entertaining thing that happened to the Denver Broncos in that game. How do you explain what happened in that Super Bowl? I mean, it was – the Broncos were favored in the game. You're playing in theory, it was supposed to be cold in New York, New Jersey, whatever, where that first cold weather Super Bowl. What happened in that game, and how did that explosion happen?
I just think we were more locked in. I think we were more focused. Obviously we were all in New York, so we ran into each other, and I could just tell that, we were more focused than they were, and we wanted it, more than them, in my opinion. And so when we came out there, we were ready to go. And I think up to that point, we were so young, we didn't really look at the game as a Super Bowl game. It was just another opportunity to kind of go out and have fun and play. And so there really wasn't no pressure. We were all free. And, we felt what, that year before when we lost to Atlanta, we had that feeling of, man, like, we should be still playing, and we weren't going to be denied. And so, I think that's just what it was. We were well prepared. Coaches had us prepared. We knew every check that they were going to do. We were very confident in the coverages that we had, and we just thought we were better. And I think a lot of the talk was because they had such a amazing offensive year and they put up so many points and all these different statistics that were going into the game. Like, I think people forgot that defense wins championships. And, we just went out there and proved that from the start of the game to, Cam's big hit to really everything. We just were locked in. We were all tied on the string, and, we were more focused than they were.
One of the interesting things about doing the podcast this year with Richard, and I'll ask you about him in a second, but was we sort of got insight as to the next Super Bowl. So you guys really probably should have won back-to-back Super Bowls. That was the kind of team that you had. And the Malcolm Butler interception on the goal line, Al Michaels and I were calling the game that year. And of course the play prior, Marshawn Lynch goes from the 5 down to the 1 yard line. I had even thought that, well, maybe they're just going to let them score so that, they can get Tom Brady back to the ball and just be able to see what happens marching it down the field. As you were there and watching that, can you remember the immediate feeling? We all saw Richard Sherman's reaction. We had an NBC camera on that. Can you remember the dagger in your heart kind of feeling that had to be?
Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking to myself, like, man, that didn't just happen. There's no way. I'm looking for a flag. I'm like hoping there's a flag somewhere, hoping something is going on. But, you kind of just was like, man, like my immediate thought was, I looked at the time, like, how much time do we have? Like, can we get the ball back? Is it a possibility, or, is there anything? And once, we kind of got on, they start taking a knee and things that nature, you realize it was over. You almost couldn't believe what had just happened. You went from, Curse making this amazing catch to, thinking that, we were getting ready to score, and then we don't. And, it was something that took a long time to get over, I think, for everybody. And, when you come that close to winning, it definitely has an effect on your team. And, you kind of just remember thinking, like, when you walk into that locker room, everybody was in shock because, you just didn't think that was going to happen. We we had got through so much. We had bounced back from so much. Like, I believe even the NFC Championship game was a crazy game. So, for us to go through all of that and, persevere through all of that and then come up short like that, it was definitely a tough situation.
You knew from talking to the guys that it wasn't just, okay, you pick up the next year in off-season training and you just go forward. There's no way to just go forward, right? There were conversations, there were training sessions. Your team got together in various places, had conversations about what had happened. The coaches were involved. I saw Pete Carroll at the combine afterwards. He wanted to sit down and explain it to me, and because I was a little harsh on the call and what had happened. So it was one of those, you got to put it back together, right? I mean, you got to put it back together to be able to start over the next season. How did you guys do that, and how did you make it work from that point forward?
I think a lot of it was just letting your true raw, emotions out. I think that was the first thing. You had to let how you felt, about the situation in the entirety out. And I think a lot of guys did that. And then, kind of after that, you had to just refocus because, once the next season came around, like no one cared that we lost. No one cared about how we felt last year. We had to move on. We had to move forward. We had to come back and realize what we were doing this for. We were trying to win again. We had another opportunity in front of us to, put together a team to win. But it was just different challenges. And this was part of that. And this was part of the challenges. And I think a lot of guys just had to, refocus and really just, put how they felt about that aside and refocus on, what we were trying to accomplish that year.
This is going to be an exciting season, and certainly your division is going to be one of the toughest in all of football. It just seems like every year now it is. As you look at the landscape now and in that division and playing LA and playing San Francisco, they're going to bounce back, and Arizona now loading up with additional talent on that football team as well. What sticks out to you? What do you see for this season, and who do you think is really the team for you guys to beat?
I believe that we have the best division or the toughest division in football. I don't even know if it's possible, but I think all of us are worthy of making it to the playoffs. I think our division is that good, and so. I think a lot of the teams are going to be looking at us because we won the division last year, and everybody stacked up from the Rams. They stacked up. Arizona added a lot of key pieces, and the 49ers got a lot of people back, and so it's going to be a tough division. But I still feel like we're favored. I still feel like we're the ones to beat, and I'm confident in our group, and we'll just have to prove it on the field.
Have you watched any Matthew Stafford tape yet?
Of course, definitely checked it out. But I mean, it's a different, there'll be different reads and different things like that. And so, a lot of it is just trying to figure out the concepts and figure out, what he did well over there and what you feel like they would try to implement and complement with what they already have. So it'll be good, but I think we'll be able to have some film, on him before we play him.
I mean, it's definitely going to be the most intriguing of all the divisions to be able to do it. And finally, I want to wrap it up outside of football. Your impression of Giannis, did you get a chance to watch the basketball finals last night? I mean, that was a guy just taking over. That was somebody, they're down 0-2, come back, win 4 straight, win a championship. What were you thinking watching it?
I think, a lot of people were kind of conflicted, right? I think, Giannis is such a likable guy that, you want him to win, but a lot of people were rooting for Chris Paul too. And as I watched the series and as everything kind of go on, I just really enjoyed watching him play, and not just playing. I love watching the press conferences after. The way he was talking about ego and humility and pride and all of that. Once I heard that, like I immediately wanted him to win on the championship because the way he broke it down, I just, he just seems so focused and really understands life, to an extent. So watching him celebrate with his family, watching him celebrate period with his teammates, hearing the stories about his mom and all those different things, you had to root for that guy. But then for him to dominate the way that he dominated, 50 points, 14 or whatever rebounds, seemed like he blocked every shot. He deserved to win that game, and he was the right person to be standing up there, man. He inspired a lot of people, including myself. And I'm excited to see what this run looks like for him. I don't think this is the last. I think that team can get better, and they'll be competing for a long time. So it'll be fun to watch his run. You watch LeBron's run and Kobe's run and Jordan's run. It'll be interesting to see what type of run he goes on.
His mother may have been important, but not as important as your mother getting you to Utah State and then jump-starting your football career. So,
right.
Hey, man, always a pleasure. Really appreciate your time, and best of luck. We will see you guys in Seattle.
Appreciate it. See you soon.
All right. Well, thank you to Bobby Wagner. He's fantastic, as he always is. Very smart. Just an easy guy to have a conversation with about the great game of football. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and give it a 5-star review if you would be so kind. That always helps us around here. And we'll see you next week with another great episode of the Cris Collinsworth podcast. See you then.